Ukraine. Commissioner, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. We discussed Ukraine, if I'm not wrong, 1 month ago in this very same room, and since then the situation that was already dramatic at that time deteriorated further, as it is evident, very evident for all of us. In the last weeks we have seen the shelling of residential areas in Mariupol, increasing attacks on civilians, and a clear escalation on the ground in many different parts of eastern Ukraine. What is at stake is, first of all, and I would like to remind us all, thousands of human lives, almost 2 million refugees and internally displaced people, the integrity and sovereignty of an independent state on European territory, and respect of basic principles of international law. The first basic principle, that you don't change borders by force. What is also at stake, especially in these very same hours, where we see the escalation growing and growing in a very dangerous way, is also and mainly, I would say, our capacity to respond to these threats, not only in an effective way to protect international law, states and the lives of civilians, but also our capacity to restore and preserve peace in Europe. In these weeks we have constantly worked, not always in a visible way, but always in a very united, coordinated and, I would say, starting to be effective way. We have had, just after the shelling in Mariupol, a coordinated approach, first of all with President Juncker and with President Tusk, to make sure that all the European institutions were reacting in the same direction and with the same voice, with the different 28 member states, starting from the Latvian presidency. And we have had an extraordinary Foreign Affairs Council meeting just after a few days of the shelling of Mariupol, where we have decided all together — here I understand I should sit on the other side of the room, but you will apologise to me — to increase our pressure on Russia and on the separatists by extending the time framework of the existing listing of individuals and entities to September, and by adding names, and also by tasking the services of the Commission and of the ES to prepare additional options for our pressure. But we have also decided all together, keeping our unity in difficult times, and this is the first thing we always have to do, keeping our unity in difficult times, because this is our main strength. We have also agreed to increase our diplomatic and political efforts and our diplomatic and political activity. In this respect we have worked, as we have done also in the previous months, through two channels that have proved to be, I cannot say effective because we did not reach a result, but the most effective among those that we have tried. On one side, the trilateral contact group of the OSCE, on the other side, the so-called Normandy format, to relaunch direct contacts between Kiev and Moscow that had interrupted for a while, and to find effective ways finally to start implementing the Minsk agreement. Because in those days, it was not only clear that the implementation of the points of the Minsk agreement was not ongoing, but there was also a risk of losing completely any kind of reference to the only agreement that was signed by the different parties. We have had in this last week, as you know, initiatives on different levels, again, OSCE channel, Normandy format channel, and direct contacts that I have had personally, both with President Poroshenko and Foreign Minister Klimkin constantly in these days, and with Foreign Minister Lavrov in Munich some days ago, to support all these efforts that are ongoing. And yesterday we had another Foreign Affairs Council meeting where we decided together to endorse the efforts of these hours and create, as you know, a space for the negotiations that are going on in these hours in Minsk, to allow the possibility of a result of these negotiations to be successful tomorrow night in Minsk, with the meeting of the Normandy format. Tomorrow it's a chance. It's not a certainty. It's a chance that cannot be missed, for all the reasons that I stated in the beginning of my speech. For the people that are losing their lives, for the principles of international law, for the sovereignty of a state, and for preserving and restoring peace in Europe. I would say, if this would not be leading us to a discussion that is much broader about our kind of world, our kind of order or disorder, to preserve some sort of global balance, global order in our times. This is what is really at stake. And I don't say I hope, but I work in these hours to make sure that all the European Union, not only some member states, all the European Union, backing these efforts and supporting these efforts, I say, sometimes quietly, but always, constantly and united, get to some result. There is another part of the story, as we are talking about Ukraine as such, and it is the fact that in times of crisis and conflict on the territory of Ukraine, it is extremely hard and difficult to make reforms, and still the internal Ukrainian situation, from an economic, from a social point of view, is increasingly difficult and worrying. We have agreed with Ukraine during our first Association Council, already in December, a list of priorities that are now trying to become concrete steps. On the government side, we see the full political will to pursue reforms. We also understand very well, we see it very well, the difficulties of implementing, passing reforms in times of conflict. I am talking about constitutional reforms, decentralisation, reform of the judiciary, electoral reforms, just to mention the political ones. But then we also have economic reforms, not only macroeconomic in their nature, but also reforms that need to change fundamentally the system in which the economy in Ukraine is working, starting to tackle corruption, first of all. This is all very much linked to the implementation of the Association Agreement, parts of which are already provisionally applied since November 1st, as you know very well, as you were ratifying this in the same time as the Parliament in Kiev already in September. On this side, on this level, the European Union is not only supporting politically and technically, but also economically. You know that the Commission has just proposed an additional package, a third package of €1.8 billion, and I trust that this measure will find your support here in the European Parliament. And we are also working through the support group for Ukraine to implement the measures that are foreseen by our association agreement, as well as we deployed an advisory mission to assist in the implementation of the civilian security sector reform. And the third sector on which our work and our assistance is concentrating is obviously on the side of facilitating the gas negotiations between Russia and Ukraine to ensure security of supply. I will stop here and listen very carefully, as I did last time, to your debate, to our debate, and take stock of that. But let me say that probably the big chance that we have today from this European Parliament is to launch a message. And the message from my side would be to the parties, first of all, obviously to Russia, but to those that will meet tomorrow night in Minsk, to take this opportunity and finally get to agree on the implementation measures of the Minsk agreement. This is what it is all about, and this is the only way in which we can start finding the way out of the crisis. I think that from today, here, we have the chance of sending that message that yesterday the ministers of the 28 member states sent very clearly, united. This is a chance that has not to be missed. Thank you.